Welcome to The Explainer. We're all about taking on big, complex topics and breaking them down into explainers that are easy to follow. You know, we click buttons, scroll through pages, fill out forms, but what is actually happening on the other side of that screen? Well, today, we're going to pull back that curtain. We're diving into the backend, and we're going to explore how you can build one from the ground up with Node.js, which, by the way, is the engine that powers a massive part of the modern web. So this whole thing really kicks off with one simple but honestly revolutionary idea. What if we took JavaScript, the language that makes websites interactive and fun, and let it run on a server? The difference is huge. In your browser, JavaScript is kind of locked in a sandbox for your own safety. It can't just go snooping around your computer's files. But on a server, Node.js has the keys to the kingdom. It can read and write files, talk to databases. Basically, it does all the heavy lifting that an application needs to function. Now, you absolutely could try to build a server using just the basic built-in tools that Node gives you, but oh man, it gets messy fast. Imagine telling your code, okay, do this first, then, only when that's done, do this second thing, and then after that's finished, do this third thing. It creates this awful nested pyramid of code that developers have a special name for, callback hell. And trust me, it is a complete nightmare to read, let alone debug. Thankfully, we do not have to reinvent the wheel every single time. The Node.js community is incredible, and they gave us the Node Package Manager, or NPM. The best way to think about it is like an app store, but for code. Got a problem you need to solve? Chances are someone has already built a package for it, tested it, and thousands of other developers have already used it and made it better. So when it comes to the specific problem of building web servers, the absolute king of NPM packages is Express.js. It's what we call a minimalist framework. It gives you all the powerful tools you need, but doesn't get in your way. It's unopinionated, which just means it's not going to force you into one rigid way of building your app. It gives you freedom and flexibility while making the whole process way, way simpler. And the difference is just it's night and day. With raw Node, you're wrestling with this complicated setup. You're writing messy if-else statements just to figure out which URL the user is asking for. But with Express, that chaos turns into a clean, simple, readable line of code. You want to handle requests to your homepage? It's as easy as app.get/. Express just handles all that underlying complexity so you can focus on building your features. Okay, great. Our server's running, we've got some routes set up. But hold on a second. What if we need to do something for every single request that comes in? Like maybe we need to log the request details for analytics, or we need to check if the request is coming from an approved website. We can't just copy and paste that same logic into every single one of our routes. That would be a huge mess. And the elegant solution to this problem is something called middleware. Seriously, think of it just like an assembly line. A request comes in, and it gets passed down the line. The first station, our logging middleware, records its details, and then calls next to pass it to the next station. That next station might be a security check, which when it's done, calls next again. The request just keeps moving down the line until it finally reaches its destination, the route handler that actually sends back a response. It's brilliant. So our app is working, but it's kind of like throwing a party and leaving the front door wide open. Anybody can just walk in and do whatever they want. We need to control access. We need a digital bouncer at the door, making sure only the right people can get into certain parts of our application. It's time for some authentication. One of the most popular ways to handle this is with JSON Web Tokens, or JWTs for short. It's actually a pretty simple concept. Think of it like getting a wristband at a concert. When you first log in with your username and password, the server checks who you are and gives you back this special digitally signed token. Then, every time you try to access a protected part of the site, you just flash that token, and the server knows you're allowed to be there. And to make things even more secure, we often use a two-token system. First, you get an access token. This is like a single-day pass to an amusement park. It expires pretty quickly, maybe in just 15 minutes. That way, if someone steals it, the damage they can do is limited. But then you also get a long-lived refresh token. This is like your ID card. You keep it somewhere safe, and its only job is to prove who you are so you can get a new day pass, a new access token, without having to log in all over again. Okay, we are so close to having a real application, but there is one giant glaring problem. Right now, any data we're working with, like our list of users, is just living in the server's memory. So what happens if the server crashes or just needs to restart? Poof, everything is gone. All that data vanishes into thin air. We need a way to store it permanently. We need a database.
Now, when it comes to databases, you've basically got two big families. You've got SQL databases, which are super structured, kind of like a very strict spreadsheet. Everything has to fit into predefined rows and columns. But for a lot of modern web apps, developers are choosing NoSQL databases like MongoDB. Why? Because the data is stored in these flexible documents that look almost exactly like the JavaScript objects we're already using in our Node app. It just feels natural. It's a perfect fit.
So how do we talk to our MongoDB database from our Node.js code? We use a fantastic tool called Mongoose. You can think of Mongoose as a translator. It lets you create a schema, which is just a blueprint for what your data should look like a user must have an email, it has to be a string, and so on. Then it gives you a bunch of simple functions to create, read, and update data so you don't have to write raw database queries. It gives you the best of both worlds, structure and validation on top of Mongoose's flexibility. And there you have it. Look at that. We've built up a complete modern backend stack, one piece at a time. We started with Node.js as our foundation. We brought in Express to handle being a web server. We organized our code with middleware. We secured it all with JWTs. And then we gave it a permanent brain with MongoDB and Mongoose. When you put them all together, these pieces form this incredibly powerful and cohesive system for building just about any web application you can dream of. So we've gone on this journey from a single, simple file all the way to a secure, data-driven backend. The only real question left is, what are you going to build with it?